Hey everybody, this is Atticus the Death Miller, and for this video, it's gonna be a video on the topic of gatekeeping. Now, I know a lot of my friends have made similar videos on gatekeeping, most notably Damien Skyfire has made several videos on gatekeeping, plus not to mention my boy Stoutmeister has released his own TikTok, so might as well just go follow him on TikTok. And he made a very good video on gatekeeping, which is this video that I'm going to be working on. But with all these videos, along with my own spin of the things, I'm going to be mentioning why gatekeeping is sometimes necessary for a community. Now I know that it sounds very crazy, but just wait at the very end. So why am I saying that gatekeeping is necessary? Well, from our Lord Savior Varg Vikernes,
let's find out.
So if we're going to be talking about gatekeeping appropriately, I might as well just start with what I do know best, as in metal. Now it's no stranger that yours truly is a metalhead. I mean, it's made noted on my title of my channel, like, I'm into metal. I love metal. Out of all music that I listen to, because I listen to a lot of different forms of music, metal is always the one genre of music that I never get bored over. It is one of my greatest passions in life. And you know, getting into metal was just great. I mean, when you're in a sheltered Catholic family where this shit is like the devil's music, but overall in time, like, you explore all these other bands and stuff, it was just amazing for me. It really was. And my philosophy back then is just like, everybody needs to listen to this shit and, you know, get right into it. And I've watched documentaries on metal on VH1, Metal Headbanger's Journey by Sam Dunn, one of my favorite documentaries ever in regards to heavy metal, because I love documentaries, and this one was just happened to be one of my favorites. Like, I live and breathe metal. But I think all of you know that metal has had a huge, notorious history of gatekeeping. I mean, I can't explain further, because we all know on how horrifically elitist the metal community is. Now, I haven't seen a lot of elitism here and there like I used to back in the day, but it's still around. It's still around there, and it's, you know, it's ever evolving as the years go by, as they say. So why I bring this up is, as of late this year, I think all of you are familiar with the Netflix show Stranger Things. They came out with their 4th season in late May, and did a volume 2 in early July. And it was probably one of the best seasons that they have ever done. It was crazy. And what was the GOAT out of all this was the character Eddie Munson. Now, I've always wanted to see a metalhead character in this series, because, you know, it's set in the 80s, and they did Eddie Munson justice. And so this one scene in volume 2, now you've probably seen it, but if you don't care about spoilers, you can watch it right ahead. So there's one scene where Eddie Munson is playing on his BC Rich Warlock the song Master of Puppets by Metallica. Now, personally for me, I was like, oh, here we go, Master of Puppets, because I'll get to that later, but I was hoping that Eddie would play either Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden or Holy Diver by Dio, since the fact that Eddie was wearing the vintage vest worn by Ronnie James Dio himself. I loved that little Easter egg right there. So, upon all of that, there was one tweet that came out on this Twitter user by the name is Nirvana is God Tier, saying, "I'm sorry Metallica for all the fake Stranger Things fans. Love ya." In which Metallica responded with such class, "Don't be sorry. Everyone is welcome in the Metallica family. If they like puppets, chances are they'll find plenty of other songs to get into." Metallica did another tweet saying, "FYI, everyone is welcome in the Metallica family. Whether you've been a fan for 40 hours or 40 years, we all share a bond through music. All of you start at ground zero at one point in time." And that That is just class right there. Way to go, Metallica. Now, a few things. I was never that huge on Metallica. I do like the Kill 'Em All album along with Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for all bangers, and also including the Black album. Yeah, I'm not really that huge on Metallica. I like a few songs off of those albums that I just stated. But even though all of you are making jokes on Metallica here and there, hell, I make jokes on Metallica as well, but you just cannot deny the factor that Metallica is like one of the most important metal bands of all time. If there was a Mount Rushmore for metal, they would be on there along the ranks of Black Sabbath, which, I mean, obviously, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, and them, Metallica. Like, I consider those are the bands on the Mount Rushmore of heavy metal. Like, their impact on the metal community and how it spanned through the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and onto the 2020s, it's amazing. And just the factor that they're just one of the most well-known metal bands out there with successful ticket sales and with Stranger Things going on, it's great. We're at a point in time where metal is getting the absolute credit it fucking deserves. Because, I mean, let's face it, like, you know, metal has been, like, you know, persecuted by the religious right, you know, the mainstream media, all this other shit. Like, it has been demonized for so many decades. And as of right now, Metallica is getting the credit it desperately needs. Hell, they had a banger of a show at Lollapalooza where Joseph Quinn, who played Eddie Munson, played Master of Puppets alongside. Hell, speaking of Lollapalooza this year, Lorna Shore, one of the biggest deathcore bands, one of the biggest names in deathcore, crushed it at a mainstream open air festival. Shouldn't you be proud that a band that is that extreme, Lorna Shore, is gaining mainstream notoriety? Oh, but they're fucking deathcore, so it doesn't really affect. It does fucking matter. Deathcore is metal. A lot of you are going to disagree, but choke on it. And also just the factor of all of you guys saying, you know, to a hot girl in a metal shirt, name 3 songs of one band. They're not really that impressed. Either they just think you're fucking annoying, they know all the bands here and there. They just don't want to give you the time or the place. It's kind of harassing as well. Every time I see a hot chick with a metal shirt, I don't do it, name 3 songs. I just say, nice shirt. What other bands do you like? Because I like the band that you're wearing. And talk, actually, at this moment, because like, when I was at Incantation, you know, a few days ago, I saw a girl with a Belphegor shirt and I said, how'd you like their new album? And she goes, it was great. I'm like, it was a great follow-up on Cultured Victual. That's the appropriate way to talk to a woman with a metal shirt. That's how you do it, in my book. Now, what does this have to do with gatekeeping being necessary? Well, when it comes to fanboys of punk rock NBA, I think it's absolutely fucking necessary. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, I've watched Punk Rock NBA. Was a good channel when I got into him in late 2018 to 2019. Said a lot of fucking dumb shit. Now, I won't explain a lot further. I will have Wyattxhim's videos down in the description below. I brought it onto another video, but fuck it, I'm gonna bring it down another video. So, you know, gatekeeping is necessary when it comes to like the punk rock NBA fanboys and fangirls that talk about how everyone should be on the trap metal phase and those who don't like trap metal are racist. No. I've said it before and I will say it again. I'm not a big fan of slam death metal, but I like a few slam death metal bands out there, but I don't like slam as a whole. And me saying that I don't like slam death metal is being racist? One of my favorite guitarists, Terrence Hobbs of Suffocation, who laid down the slam riffs. One of my favorite guitarists. So you're saying that I'm racist towards Terrence Hobbs. Bit of a fucking stretch over there. But yes, But for my take into newbies getting into metal, I just send them bands that I like that are good beginning starts for getting into metal, like for instance, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, Metallica, Slayer, and like fucking, you know, Cannibal Corpse even. And if they're not comfortable, I say, hey, take your time. Your time will come soon. Because I felt the same way when I was getting into Dimmu Borgir and fucking Behemoth and Cradle of Filth. Because remember, I was in a religious household, so listening to black metal, it was forbidden fruit, and I thought I was going to hell every time they would say 666 and shit. I was weird back then. But you know, that's just how it is. To the newbies that are getting into metal, it's just a gradual, just baby steps. And if they're like, oh, I'm comfortable with this, I send to another level, then the other, and the other, and the other, and I just say, hey, go out and explore. There's more bands out there. That, you're on your own. You've seen all the great bands I've offered. There you go. Now, another thing I want to bring up is in gatekeeping in regards to wrestling. Now, unlike heavy metal, I have had a very sordid, complicated on and off relationship when it comes to professional wrestling. The oldest memory that I have ever had, I do believe. Now, this is all I can remember. Now, my mind is very, memorable on a lot of stuff, but when it comes to wrestling, not that much. But I do recall watching a few episodes of WCW Nitro, Monday Night Nitro during, the Monday Night Wars back in the 90s with WCW and WWE, which was then called the WWF at that time. So I can remember seeing a lot of several matches between Bill Goldberg, absolute fucking jacked up menace, just insane. Would not want to fuck around with that guy. But I think the most vivid memory would be that of the NWO, which is Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, rest in peace Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash basically just ganging up on him, using a cattle prod on his ass, and then spraying NWO on there. That is like the most vivid memory I have on watching WCW Nitro. But again, I was on and off on wrestling. I would say to my younger brother, who was really getting into the Ruthless Aggression era, you do realize it's all fake, right? And then as of the early 2020s, I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna get right back into wrestling. Since I watched the Andre the Giant documentary on HBO. It was actually on Amazon, but they had HBO Go on Amazon. And so I watched it. Very telling documentary on Andre the Giant. And then of course that's when I got into the series off of Vice called Dark Side of the Ring. Now I know I've said a lot of things onto Vice, but I would say Dark Side of the Ring was where I really got invested into like fucking wrestling and seeing all that other shit. And of course the first episode was on the Chris Benoit Murs, and I would say it's out of all the episodes which I watch on my Apple TV account, I have all of them, I watch them all religiously. The Benoit two-part it's insane. It's very insane. But yeah, why I talk about gatekeeping in wrestling, cause when I was getting to rekindle my sort of relationship on wrestling to my friends who are big into wrestling, Damien, Skyfire, and Chris, mostly to Chris, was all like, yo, you'd say this and that, you need to know all this other stuff. So, getting invested, watching that series, and watching YouTube videos. Also, I have a Peacock account, which I watch, all the pay-per-views, and the WrestleManias, and all the other stuff, learning about kayfabe, and all the matches. And Damien saying, hey, watch these matches that I recommend to you. Watch them, come back to me. And in my cases, I just browse around in some matches, pay-per-views that is going on in wrestling, and I come out and say, hey, I like this pay-per-view, I like that pay-per-view, I like this pay-per-view and that pay-per-view, this match, that match, all this other stuff. And as of right now, I would say my favorite wrestlers, would be those of these following gentlemen right here. Mick Foley, Ric Flair, I'm fucking glad that Ric Flair didn't die in his final match. Eddie Guerrero, rest in peace Latino Heat. Kurt Angle, Andre the Giant, and Brian Pillman Jr. I actually got to see him with his tag team partner Griff Garrison on an AEW show on Jacksonville with my old man before his birthday, and yeah, that was an insane drop kick that Pillman Jr. did. So, but yeah, when it comes to like people that are just like trying to get into wrestling, you have the people say, "Oh, I love this wrestler and that wrestler." You have to be very invested into the product, whether it be like, WWE or like all the stuff of the Monday Night Wars, ECW, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all that shit. I have yet to check out New Japan, but I know that I have like Peacock at my disposal, which I can watch this and that and garner a lot of my knowledge. So to my boys, I'm trying over here. I'm trying to expand my sordid relationship onto wrestling. I know that wrestling fans are very, very, very passionate. It's a different world than that of like metal, which I am very familiar with. But yeah, there's all that. But now we're getting to the main fucking reason why I am making this video on gatekeeping. So we've talked about the metal community and how infamous gatekeeping is. I've talked about how fair gatekeeping is into wrestling communities. We are now going to be talking about communities, whether it be like in, fandoms. As for instance of what we are talking about, Lord of the Rings. Now those of you who know me personally, you know that I absolutely loved the Lord of the Rings trilogy back in the early 2000s. Looking back, especially watching the extended trilogy on my vacation, aged like fucking fine wine. Oh my god. Like, those movies were ahead of their time. And there was announcements that Amazon bought the rights over to Tolkien to do a little series called The Rings of Power, which is set in the second age of Middle Earth. Now, there was a lot of hype going on. There was like little teasers here and there. And yeah, it all went to shit later on. I'm just gonna be fucking for real over here. We saw some posters here and there and trailers and stuff, and I'm going, this isn't Lord of the Rings. This really isn't Lord of the Rings. This is basically something that is different. Why? Well, for starters, this shit over here. And I know a lot of people are gonna come after me and say that, oh, you don't like POC characters in your beloved Lord of the Rings? Times have changed, Atticus the Death Metaler. Why are you being so racist? And that's just one thing that I really need to bring out. So I got this quote over here, and it says, and it's probably from like the producers of the Rings of Power series that's gonna happen later in September, stating, "It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of the author's work would reflect what the world actually looks like," as in what the world actually looks like today, just not the original source material that J.R.R. Tolkien made. Now, this is what I find really ridiculous, because I remember watching the Witcher series, the first season, and I didn't finish the second season because I just didn't really feel the vibe onto it. Now, don't get me wrong, Henry Cavill played a very good Geralt of Rivia, but it just didn't really feel like any of that. And so when I see shit like this, it reminds me of something that it reminds me of what Nerderotic said, and which he stated this. So a company buys the rights of this said thing, as in, for instance, Lord of the Rings, and to order to appease to an audience, which, a fan base, arguably the Lord of the Rings fan base, including mine, very loyal, very great fan base. Then you make it something that they did not ask for. You're literally like destroying something in their eyes that they've invested a lot of their time and energy onto this fandom. And since there's getting a lot of backlash, you go around saying like, oh my god, why are these guys getting so, why are they like, you know, going crazy over this? This is a bigoted fan base. So essentially, it is something that is known as toxic fandom, and I might talk about that later. And just so you know, I am going to be watching all the episodes of the first season of Rings of Power, because I plan to make an episode of the Death Metal Cinemas onto that. And that's what really pisses me the fuck off when it comes to, you know, Netflix doing The Witcher and then Amazon doing the Rings of Power. You met up with this whole bullshit, and then next thing you know, the fan base is labeled as like alt-right, bigoted racists when it comes to characters that are like of a different race. It takes me off. It really does. Now, another quote I want to bring up, and this is a quote that actually Peter Jackson did. We made a promise to ourselves at the beginning of the process that we weren't going to put any of our own politics, our own messages, or our own themes into these movies. In a way, we were trying to make these films for him, J.R. Tolkien, not for ourselves. Peter Jackson lived up onto that promise, and yes, there were a few things here and there that were changed for the film's perspective, and of course, all that was left off in the theatric versions in the theaters up until you got the extended editions. But the Lord of the Rings trilogy was the most successful trilogy in film history. And they have, I've said it again, has aged like fine wine. Hell, Return of the King won 11 Oscars. That tells you something. That really tells you something, because like that trilogy was amazing. You look back, this was like 2001, 2002, 2003. Those movies are timeless, in my opinion. I know most people say, oh, this is a bunch of walking. No, it's more than that. It is more than that. I could go on, but again, I'm doing a Death Metal Cinemas episode on reviewing the series of Rings of Power. All I'm trying to say is that when it comes to companies pandering to this bullshit that I've been talking about for many years on this channel, and then they're alienating a fan base that has been very invested in this for many years, they get the backlash, label them as racist bigots. I fucking hate that. It is unfair. Absolutely unfair. So that final portion is the reason why I think gatekeeping is absolutely necessary. Because when you have shit like this, when you have a company that really, I mean, it's so funny because, like, you know, it's all these like companies are like, oh, don't worry, we're gonna go by the books, just to, in a little bit of a smokescreen, only to bring out their original intentions, which is just to make it into their own image. You know, you get like mansplaining Galadriel, a black beardless dwarf, and, you know, elves with no long hair, Sauron looking like a fucking Eminem school shooter mix. Oh god, what the fuck am I about to go into? But aside from all that, that is really all I have to say in regards to this. What are your guys' thoughts about gatekeeping? Do you agree with what I said onto all three subjects? Do you disagree on all three subjects that I've said? Are you going to be watching Rings of Power? Do you think I'm still a poser on wrestling? Do you still think I am a noob when it comes to metal? Leave it all down on the comments below. And stay tuned for more videos to come. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus the Death Metaler. Hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel. Links in the description below. Keep it metal. Stay safe, stay healthy, have an excellent and blessed day, y'all. Skål.